So you may have noticed that on certain rides, Uber is taking 40%, 50%, or sometimes even more of the fare. Well, that's happening because of upfront pricing. And in this video, I'll cover how Uber's upfront pricing actually works so you'll know just what to look out for as a driver. But first, I want to mention a new company that's sponsoring this channel called Rideshare Night. They're actually one of the first companies to offer rideshare drivers extended warranties and service contracts for your vehicle. Personally, I'll never forget the name because it's also my favorite piece in chess, the knight. But anyways, most regular extended and manufacturer warranties, they won't cover your vehicle for commercial use like driving for Uber and Lyft. And so if you want a warranty that will cover that $3,000 to $5,000 blown transmission, for example, Rideshare Night is the company for you. They offer 0% financing and monthly payments for their vehicle service contracts. It's available to most drivers depending on your vehicle, and also it's not based on credit. So monthly payments are as low as $36 a month. I think $70 a month is probably a little more typical, and you can actually take it to any licensed mechanic or dealership service department to fix your car. So head to ridesharenight.com or head into the show notes and use our link to sign up and check them out. All right, now back to upfront pricing. So when Uber first launched, what passengers paid for a ride and what drivers received for the ride were always linked. So let's say a passenger paid $12 for a ride. Uber would take their booking fee of, let's say, $2, so 12 minus 2 is now $10, and then they take their 25% commission off of that, right? Leaving you, the driver, $7.50. So the rider would pay $12, you would get $7.50, and you could always calculate both amounts, basically what the passenger paid and what you as a driver were receiving. But then Uber and Lyft actually switched to the system called upfront pricing, where they estimate what the fare should be for the passenger, and then they charge them a set price and pay the driver, you, based off the exact mileage and time. So honestly, I think this is a pretty good system for the passengers because, whatever price they see when they go and request a ride, that's what they pay. Pretty simple. It can't really change, but the driver's pay is actually still based off the actual mileage and time of the trip. Uber's upfront pricing estimate, right, what they tell passengers, it's supposed to be based off things like traffic and some other factors, but we've sort of seen, and what's kind of the issue with upfront pricing is that their estimates really suck. I've seen cases where passengers will pay $50 for their ride. Uber only ends up paying the driver $15, 15, right? So that's a commission of 70% for Uber, right? I've seen all the way up to, I think, 81% is the worst case I've ever seen. And as you can imagine, this is obviously pissing off a lot of drivers, and we get a ton of questions about it. So I really wanted to make this sort of, basic video about what's happening with upfront pricing and, kind of what's going on, that's causing these basically big mismatches. Now, as you can imagine, Uber says that their upfront pricing system is basically a betting algorithm, and they're going to win some rides and lose some rides, but it all evens out in the end. Now, the problem I found is that, they don't even say what it evens out to. So they're sort of asking drivers to trust them. And I think if, you guys have watched my channel and been with me since the beginning, you know that there's one thing, when Uber talks about rates or earnings and they say to trust them, I always go in with a healthy dose of skepticism, right? They're not the most trustworthy company when it comes to drivers and their earnings. That's, those are facts, right? Now, luckily, we have actually studied this number, this kind of what we call the effective commission, so what Uber is taking from every ride over the years. We've looked at it before upfront pricing and after upfront pricing with different drivers in different markets, and it's always been around 30 to 40% is sort of their total take rate or their total effective commission when we looked at, the last few hundred trips of a driver. So it's not, that they're taking 70% on every ride, it averages out to lower, but we've always seen it in that 30 to 40% range. So what that means for you as a driver is that, let's say you do 100 rides and the total of what the passengers pay for all those rides is $1,000, right? You're typically going to be keeping 60 to 70%, right? So $600 to $700. But I mean, at the same time, it seems like Uber's still taking a pretty big cut, in my opinion. And this is definitely one thing that we hear a lot of complaints from drivers, that it seems like Uber is taking a bigger and bigger cut because of a lot of this stems from this upfront pricing. So, basically, even though you might have some fares that they take 70%, it is balanced out by other fares where they take less, or on some like Uber Pool, for example, they actually lose money on some Uber Pool rides. So, if you think about it though, my big problem with upfront pricing is that Uber lost $4 billion in 2017. So, they're getting ready for this IPO, and they obviously have to become profitable. So they're really looking for ways to make more money. And I mean, it just wouldn't surprise me if they slowly increase their commission, their overall or their effective commission over time. And there are more of those 70% rides, and there's more of those 50 and more of those 60, and less of the rides where they make less. I think it's just, it's kind of asking for them to take advantage of it. And the problem is that there isn't a good way really to see the overall commission by driver, by city, right? Uber doesn't say that, hey, our effective or our total take rate is 30%, right? They don't say any of that. So, I think that's a big problem. You actually have to go in and calculate it manually, and it's a huge hassle every time we do it. We always ask drivers to help us and go out and do it. We provide spreadsheets and templates, but no one ever does it. So, most drivers that I've talked to hate upfront pricing, kind of with a passion, sort of similar to like an Uber pool, but and it's funny that they have the same initials. But I know some drivers actually don't have a problem with it because with upfront pricing, and they say that Uber is still paying drivers the agreed upon time and mile rates, right? So technically, you could say drivers aren't being underpaid with upfront pricing. As a driver, you have to remember you're always paid the exact mileage and time, regardless of what destination the passenger puts in. If they change the destination, if they make stops, it doesn't matter. At the end of the trip, if it was 10 miles and 30 minutes, that's exactly what you're going to get paid for always. So I could definitely see that argument. I don't necessarily agree with it. And, even for the passenger, it's hard to say, these same people would, they say it's hard to say the passengers are being overcharged since they're agreeing to this upfront price, right? They see it right there on the screen, and that's the price they pay. But, like I said, it just doesn't feel right to me. I mean, Uber calls this upfront pricing, but it seems anything but upfront. Like I said earlier, to be frank, I don't think Uber is the most trustworthy company, and they have this system in place where there's a real opportunity to really take advantage of things if they want to, and I think that they may just do that in the future. So definitely upfront pricing, that's sort of how it works, and it's something to definitely keep an eye on in the future, and we'll be doing just that. So if you guys have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to leave them below. Send me an email, harry@theridshareguy.com. We release new videos every single Tuesday and Thursday, occasionally Sundays too when we're feeling extra happy. So make sure you subscribe to our channel, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and again, thank you to Rideshare Night for sponsoring this video. Make sure to check them out. All right, drive safe, everyone.